And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
The New Orleans Saints select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yep.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
There's a chance that we probably have some of the same.
Yep.
So we're both going to go in this blind.
Yep. Start out with one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league for me, and I'm starting him in multiple leagues, and I still, even though I've been talking about him for this whole week, I cannot believe, but my start for this week is going to be Geno Smith playing against Arizona at home, one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and Geno Smith with two of the best wide receivers in the league to this point, as far as value for sure. I really like the matchup. I think, it's going to be a shootout because neither defense can hardly hold water as far as points goes. And I think Geno keeps it rolling. He's actually doing some work with his legs also. So I like Geno as my start at quarterback this week outside the top five. Who do you got in your start this week? Or you can tell me about it if you want to talk about Geno a little bit. I mean, he's honestly earned it.
I do want to talk about Geno because he's the same guy I got.
There you go.
I honestly thought we might have the same one on this. That's one reason I said that a while ago.
Well,
but anyway,
I got a feeling there's going to be a couple from what we've already talked about so far. There's going to be a couple of the same ones, and that's okay.
I agree. It wouldn't have been like that, over the last few weeks.
And like
anyway.
we've said before, that should just reinforce your, your confidence in what we think is going to happen this week.
So you almost read word for word my notes, so there ain't much to say. I had the same thing. One of the hottest quarterbacks in the league should have another big day with a bad Arizona defense. So,
all right.
I also got. I'm also going to mention this guy since you had Geno Smith.
Sure.
Tom Brady.
Yep.
I think he's back. He threw it 50 times last week in a big win. He's going to get up to close to 50 now that he's got all his weapons back. They're going to throw the ball a lot. So that's another guy I like outside the top five.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I pulled up the rankings, he was number 6, I believe.
and Geno was 7?
No, Geno, I think Geno was like 8 or 9, but Brady was 6. And I was like, man, that just feels kind of like low hanging fruit. I was like, I'm going to go down a little bit more because, honestly, I feel like Brady's going to be in that top right in that area for the rest of the year. But that's a great one too. And honestly, if I had Brady on the team, unless I got one of those studs, I'm starting Brady every week now,
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Moving on to our sits at quarterback. We're gonna do each position. Moving on to our sits at quarterback. Outside the top 5, I got Russell Wilson at the Chargers. Honestly, and it sounds like you got the same.
I got the same guy.
That's so crazy. I mean, we literally did not. Normally, each week we at least communicate a little bit on who has what. We don't really change it, but we talk about it. And this week, neither one of us have communicated which one we were picking at any of these positions. And this, honestly, I expected some to be the same, but 2 in a row, it's starting to get kind of weird there. But Russell Wilson at the Chargers. The Chargers defense is starting to get healthier. They're still not going to have the Bosa at running back. I think it's Joey Bosa there. I lose track. There's only like 5 Bosas in the NFL. But I think it's Joey Bosa. He's still going to be on IR for a while. But their secondary is starting to get healthier. And Russell Wilson's battling that grade 2 lat strain, said he feels better each day. They came out and said that today. I guess they were trying to instill some confidence in some people saying that I'm getting better each day. Well, of course you're getting better each day until you go out there and play in a game and, get hit some and have to try to heave the ball down the field, in the moment. But anyway, I just, the offense looks like it's out of sync. Russell Wilson's playing injured. I think it's just a bad situation in general. And it's at the Chargers, so
yeah.
I think the Chargers come to play, and I think the Denver offense struggles.
Yeah, and like I I had Russell Wilson too. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of stuff going on with this, and now
Yeah.
you throw the injury on top
That's
of it.
right.
It just don't look good. And this offense is out of sync.
Yep,
Man. It's
definitely.
Just, it's just a bad offense right now. I mean, they played a game last week that went into overtime, and he could not get one touchdown.
Yep.
You know, that's
It's sad.
yeah.
I mean, it makes me feel better. Not good for him, but because I was high on him coming in, and it makes me feel a little better that he's been playing injured for like almost for a whole game and a half. They said he injured it halfway through the Raiders game. When they were playing the Raiders that week, he actually had a decent game, and he injured it halfway through and played through it, and then played with the injury all of last week. So that kind of, there was a lot of throws that definitely seemed off, and that kind of makes you think that could be the cause. But then once again, if he can't be accurate, that just gives you a lot less confidence on how well he's going to perform.
But I just wonder how much, is going on in the locker room. Are they losing confidence in him? It's just, it's something. It just don't feel right.
What I've heard and read, he's a great guy in the locker room for the most part. I mean, he's had his flubs with some of the guys, in Seattle, but a lot of those guys were a lot more. I mean, I kind of say this, but they're louder mouth, kind of, in your face, obnoxious guys. Richard Sherman's one of the smartest football players people don't realize that's out there.
Is.
But he's also really obnoxious and really loud. And I don't know if just Russell Wilson just doesn't jive with that on his team, and I don't know. And I feel like, I don't think there's too much of that in Denver. I really don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure you've seen it, and I might have sent it to you, the meme with Melvin Gordon looking at him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
that's been all over the place.
And that's honestly, if they keep tanking, I think Melvin Gordon's going to get traded before the season's over too. Somebody needs a running back, but that's just my take on that. But moving on to our quarterback sleepers. These are quarterbacks outside the top 15. I'm going with Jimmy Garoppolo this week.
Oh my goodness. You're not going to believe this.
I bet I do. At Atlanta, he was on my waiver. He was on my waiver column to stream this week. I do like him on good matchups this year. I don't like him all season, every game starting, just because they run the ball so much. But whenever they play and pass, good positive pass defense, like good matchups for passing.
Yeah.
I really like Garoppolo because he can get it done with the athletes on his team. I mean, when you got Kittle, even though he hadn't been as productive, Ayuk and Samuel, I mean, that's just a matchup. And all he has to do is get him the ball and they make plays after the catch. And I really like him this week at Atlanta. If you need somebody to stream, if your quarterback, if you got golf you've been rolling with and he's on a bye, I like Garoppolo. And from what it sounds like, I have a feeling that Josh had Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I got Jimmy G too. Had a pretty good week last week, 253,
he did.
2 touchdowns. And he's playing, like you said, against a bad pass defense. And I'll tell you another thing, Tevin Coleman, can help him out too. He's a good pass catcher out of the
and a good blocker out of the backfield, pass blocker. So and it's at Atlanta. Don't have to worry about the weather in the dome. So
and I'm like you, I don't like him for the year.
Yeah,
but
not every game.
Times if you need
good
somebody,
matchups. That's right.
Yeah.
Moving on, we'll go to our running backs. These are going to be our start running backs. They're outside the top 10. And I got a feeling, since we've already talked, that Josh is going to have this guy as well. And that's going to be Breece Hall, possibly, at Green Bay. Maybe not. Didn't get a reaction there. But
I don't have him.
I do like Breece Hall at Green Bay just because he's getting so much more involved. It's not the greatest matchup. It's not terrible. I think Green Bay's like the 15th ranked run defense. So kind of middle of the pack. But honestly, with the Jets offense performing like it is right now, with him getting involved, I don't see how you go away from that. And I think he's just constantly getting more and more involved. And I think I think they go into Green Bay and put a hurting on Green Bay and whoop them. I mean, the Jets just seem like they're coming out to fight. They kind of seem like, I mean, they put up 40 points last week, and I think they're gonna. And honestly, Green Bay looks like they're struggling to score the ball, you know. And I like Brees Hall this week at Green Bay, and then for my second one, running back outside the top 10, Ramondre Stevenson at Cleveland. You know, we just talked about a little bit earlier. Damian Harris out. They got a rookie they like, but I think it's gonna be the Ramondre show, and Cleveland's the number 19th ranked rushing defense. So they're banged up at defense still and in the secondary some. So, and Ramondre has been getting it done. He's gonna get the volume, and volume's king. And I like Ramondre at Cleveland. So who you got at your starts there, Josh?
Number one, I got Ramondre Stevenson.
There you go.
He should probably get 20 plus carries.
At least.
Harris is out. Going to have a big game. He showed last week what he could do when he gets a little bit of volume.
That's right.
And they love to run the ball. And number two, I got Kenneth Walker.
Good. Yep.
I think with the volume he's going to get this week.
That's right.
And he's always got a chance to break a big one. I think, and we talked about this in our last podcast, I think he's a league winner, you know, for the one that was kind of had a really good team, but was missing that one player, and you was able to get him off of waivers. It probably put you over the top. And I guarantee when you look at the end of the year, assuming he stays healthy on teams that win, he's on a lot of those teams.
That's right. And I'll be honest, he was somewhat of an oversight for me on this because I would have put him at my sleeper, but there was another guy that I have at my sleeper that I found before I got to his name, and that I really like as well. And then, like, honestly, it was probably on my way home. I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about him, and I was like, I forgot they're playing Arizona. And that's a great call, man.
That's why you got a partner.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But we'll go ahead and swing on to our sits at running back. And we talked about this guy earlier a little bit, having a down week last week, and I think he has another one this week. That's CEH against Buffalo. Clyde Edwards-Helaire they're playing at home, but they're playing Buffalo. Buffalo has been giving up on the pass more than they have the run. I think they're the number 9th ranked run defense currently. But we were just talking about, like, CEH is one of 3 on that team, and he's not as much involved in the pass as Jerick McKinnon is, and Pacheco seems to be getting it rolling. I feel like if he does have a big game, it's because he falls into the end zone on like 5 carries and he falls into there twice, you know, with a catch. I just see them having to throw the ball a lot more to keep up with Buffalo's offense, because Kansas City's defense is a lot worse than Buffalo's defense. And I think they're going to have to throw the ball more, and I think that's going to be more Jerick McKinnon this week than it will be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So who do you have at your sit there, Josh?
Well, this is probably an easy one, and I could have probably dug around and got somebody else, but I got Najee Harris.
He's
been bad all year. And now the reason I got him on here now, he's getting the Tampa Bay defense. Who's all, been good against running backs the last few years. I actually, and I've said this on the podcast, but I've got him in a keeper league, and I actually haven't started him in the last 2 weeks. Which I got lucky. I picked up Miles Sanders late.
Yeah.
And I've started him in his spot. I just don't think you sure can't start him this week. That's the reason really I put him on here, because of playing the Tampa Bay. You cannot. He's going to have a terrible game.
And honestly, like we've talked about before, if this game gets out of hand, are they just going to go to Jaylen Warren again and let him take the load and just take it easy on Harris? Because Harris is their future. They're going to get this offensive line straight eventually. Kenny Pickett's he's going to run a better offense than Mitch Trubisky. I mean, heck, he already does run a better offense than Mitch Trubisky right now. And I think that the future's a lot brighter with him and Najee Harris and George Pickens in it than it is if they, run Harris into the ground this early in his career.
Well, and two, why not play Warren some, see what you got with him.
That's exactly
is he
right.
somebody you want to keep for a backup, or
right.
do you want to, get rid of him next year? Or who knows? He might end up being a stud. You just don't know unless you play him. So
that's exactly right. And I think that's a great call. And then moving on to our sleepers, which are running backs outside the top 20. Mine is Jeff Wilson Jr. at Atlanta. Honestly, why not go with the number one running back on the number one running team against one of the worst running defenses in a dome? I mean, Jeff Wilson, he's honestly been putting up solid numbers every week as long as he's healthy. He's going to be a borderline, he's going to be a top end RB2. And I think this week he's got a good chance. They're going to be leading and they're going to be running the ball a lot. And I think it's going to be a lot of him and Tevin Coleman, and he's going to get the first shot. And I just think he's a great. I mean, and you can still call him a sleeper because I think he's only owned and started in like 70 something % of leagues, and then I think he's only started in like 50. So that's why he
had a good game last week,
and he's ranked fairly low. I don't understand that in the rankings. I think he's like around 30, and I'm like, the dude's playing it in, and then Atlanta just traded their best linebacker in Deion Jones. They just traded him, so I don't know, but I feel like Atlanta's already throwing throwing their ring in the hat. I mean, their hat in the ring and giving up on the season. And I think Jeff Wilson gets to eat. So I like him as a sleeper this week. Who you got, Josh?
I got Travis Etienne.
Excellent.
He seems to find his place, in Jacksonville now. Yep. He's getting more volume.
Yep.
He showed last week that he outplayed.
53% snap share to 47 for 47 for James Robinson.
James Robinson, yep. But I like him. And another guy I really like this week, I'm not sure where he is on the rankings, but Raheem Mostert, I think, is going to have a big game. I really wanted to put him there too, because I think with Tua out, they're going to run the ball more. And, man, he ran the ball good last week. So he's another one. He's another one that I like. And like I said, I'm not sure where he is in the rankings, if he's outside the top 20 or what. But if you got him,
he's 17.
Okay.
But still, I mean, he's
great
going to be
flex. He'd be a great flex.
And honestly, he's probably somebody on somebody's bench because they were not expecting him to be that high earlier in the season. So he's somebody you might have a bad matchup. Say you got Najee Harris. I'd start Mostert over Najee Harris.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And so that's one. I mean, that's a great call. It's definitely somebody that somebody might have that's listening to this podcast might have that quandary right now that they're like, I got Najee Harris, but I'm afraid to not play him. But I'd start him in a heartbeat.
I would too.
But moving on past our running back sleepers, we're going to move to our wide receiver starts. And for me, number one wide receiver start outside the top 15 is going to be Chris Godwin at Pittsburgh. I mean, we just talked about Tom Brady threw the ball 52 times 2 weeks ago, threw the ball 52 times last week. And Chris Godwin's, probably 1B to Mike Evans 1A. And he's at Pittsburgh, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Honestly, just mainly their defense in general because they're so injured, but also because their offense can't, maintain drives and keeps their defense on the field so much. But Chris Godwin at Pittsburgh, I think Tom Brady's starting to get it figured out. Chris Godwin's, they're managing his reps. He was limited in practice Wednesday, limited today, but he's still fully expected to, play this weekend. They're just kind of keeping him limited in practice to make sure he stays healthy.
Well, he's going to be limited all year. He's
Yeah.
going to get those rest days on Thursdays.
But when he plays, and I think he has a big week, and I hope he finds the end zone this week against Pittsburgh. And then my number 2 start, it's going to be Jacoby Myers at Cleveland. I mean, you talked about him on your overachievers, and to me, I think he's going to be far above an overachiever. He's probably going to be on the studs column more than anything in the future. But he's playing at Cleveland. Cleveland's like the 19th ranked pass defense in the league because they're injured so much right now. Honestly, he's the one. He just gets all the catches, like we talked about in previous podcasts. He's kind of fallen into that James White role, and I mean, every week that he plays, every quarterback he plays with, he's getting double-digit targets, getting around 7 or 8 catches for almost over 100 yards and finding the end zone. So I like Jacoby Myers this week at Cleveland. Who you got as your starts at wide receiver there, Josh?
Well, first one I got is Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
For all the reasons you just said. If Tom Brady throws it 50+ times, Chris Godwin's going to get 10 of them, 12 of them. He's, he's probably going to be, even though, the other wide receiver you just mentioned, even though Mike Evans is going to probably have some of the big plays,
he's touchdowns.
Chris Godwin's going to get the volume.
Yep.
And for that reason alone, and like you said, he's due for a touchdown.
That's right.
And the next one I got is Rondell Moore.
Yep.
This will be his 3rd game back.
That's right.
And
second game.
Second game back. Okay.
No.
So
hang on, I'll pull it up. You might have been right. Anyway, go ahead and keep talking. I'll let you know.
So, he's getting his rhythm back. Like we both said, this Seattle Arizona game there's going to be a lot of points. They're going to be all over the field. 2 terrible defenses playing 2 pretty good offenses.
That's right.
So I think maybe this is the game that he kind of breaks out.
That's right.
So I like Rondell Moore this week.
And you were right. This will be his 3rd game back.
I doubt he's, on your waiver wire, but he could be one, that's still there that might be worth picking up.
Yeah. 1 second. I'll tell you how much he's owned, because he should be. There he is right there. Yep, only 37% rostered. So definitely somebody, and I believe I did have him on my waiver column as a pickup and start. And also something I recommended, if he goes off this week, just blows it up, try to trade him. DeAndre Hopkins is coming back. He's not going to have no value when he comes back, but he's not going to be I don't think he's getting 8-10 targets a game like he is. He's going to be like he had 8 last week, and I bet he has 10+ this week. I think his value takes more of a hit when Hopkins comes back than Marquise Brown's. Marquise Brown's another trade high candidate, but I feel like that Moore is that 3rd option whenever all 3 of them are on the field. I could be wrong, and then that doesn't include Ertz. Ertz is another high end option, and if Moore is the 4th option, how much is left? But yeah.
Well, then the running backs are going to get a few catches on too.
That's right. And I like Moore a lot this week, but after this week, after Hopkins comes back, and maybe it does take Hopkins a week to get reacclimated. Maybe you got another week of cushion there, but I would definitely be looking to try to trade. If he goes off and say ETN has an average week, if you could get Rondell Moore for ETN, I think that'd be a trade you want to make. All right. Let's see. Moving on to our sits at wide receiver. This one is pretty much as low-hanging fruit as it gets. Might be the same guy you got. I don't know, but I'm going to go with DJ Moore at the Rams. Honestly, new coach, new quarterback, and they're playing against the Rams. The Rams secondary now is one of the worst in the league, which is fairly surprising given their high dollar cornerbacks that they have. but I just think that the disruption in the locker room and the organization in Carolina, the new quarterback, which is quarterback's going to be PJ Walker.
Can't be no worse than it has been the last 4 or 5 weeks.
You're right, but PJ Walker, I just feel like there's not going to be that much chemistry there with the wide receivers. I think it's going to be a CMC show, and maybe throw it to, he'll get some catches here and there, but I think it's going to be just not somebody, maybe a flex start at best. And
well, he's another one that I've got on one of my teams, and I haven't started him in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Honestly, I think, I've heard they like Terrence Marshall a lot in that organization. And if they like him as much as they say, who's to say they don't trade DJ Moore for some high-end draft picks some point of the year and just start thinking about completely rebuilding? I mean,
I seen something where they were talking about they weren't getting rid of McCaffrey, they wouldn't get rid of DJ Moore, and it was one other one that they weren't getting rid of. So
I mean,
maybe
to me that's a good core, but when you hear people teams rebuilding, they just start shipping off people left and right and getting as many draft picks as possible.
Well, on the right team, he could be a difference maker.
He could be a difference maker for that team if they just get him the dadgum ball.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it. I would be, you think you'd have plays set up for him. I don't know.
No doubt.
Find a way. You got to get your best players involved if you want to win ball games. But
that's right.
They don't seem to want to win in Carolina. So nothing's probably going to change. And that's probably a good pick.
Yep, DJ Moore, the Rams. That's my sit for my wide receiver outside the top 15. And who do you got, Josh?
I got Elijah Moore. He's had 11 catches in the last 4 games. And you can also throw probably Garrett Wilson because he's fell off since Zach Wilson's come back. He's had 5 catches in the 2 games with Zach Wilson. They're scoring points. They're putting up numbers, but these 2 guys are just they're not doing a whole lot.
It's the running backs. I mean, honestly,
they're running the ball.
Yeah. And their defense has actually been playing fairly well. I don't know if you've read much, but the Sauce Gardner kid is like the number one.
Good.
He's like the number 1 cornerback in the league right now. Like there were some crazy stats that Pro Football Focus has been putting up on him. I don't have them on hand, but I keep seeing them as I'm scrolling. And I mean, this guy's like, freaking Revis Island 2.0.
Yeah, the Jets have drafted well the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, definitely. And their defense is looking up. Their organization is looking up in general.
Oh, definitely.
And I feel like if they're coaching, I feel like if they get their coaching situation right, that they could really be somebody that just kind of flips the script real quick, kind of like Jacksonville kind of has,
Well, I can't remember the last time that both New York teams had winning records.
Oh, they were talking about that on the radio. It's been I want to say you got to go back to the early Eli Manning and whenever it was Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, and who was the quarterback then? I'm trying to think. I don't think it was Fitzpatrick. It could have been though. Anyway, that was back when they made the playoffs.
It wasn't no butt fumble, was it? What's his name? You know what I'm talking about? Mariota?
No, not it's you're talking about Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley. Wasn't that him?
I was thinking no, Mark Sanchez.
But I don't think it was him. It was somebody else. Anyway, they had a winning record. They made the playoffs that year because Chris Ivory was the running back. And anyway,
he had a good fantasy year too.
Yes, yeah, I know. I had a guy in our fantasy league. A little side note here: guy auto drafted in one of my fantasy leagues that year. And when he auto drafted, we did a live draft, so we auto drafted for him live. And it was ironic. Every time it was his pick, the top player at the position he needed was a Jet. And he got Eric Decker, he got Brandon Marshall, and he got Chris Ivory. And he won the league that year with them. I remember specifically one week I was up by 100. Okay. And he had those three guys left playing on Monday Night Football. I lost. They put up like 110, all three of them. Like crazy. I couldn't believe it. I think Brandon Marshall had like 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Eric Decker had like 100 and something yards and a touchdown. And then Chris Ivory ran for like 100 and something yards and a touchdown. Or it might have been 2 touchdowns and a couple catches or something crazy. But yeah, he ended up beating me. I was up by like 102 or 105, and he ended up beating me that week. And I just couldn't believe it with 3 players. And anyway, just a little side note there, back when the Jets were last relevant and starting to look like they're going to be relevant again soon. So, but anyway, so Elijah Moore, good pick for a sit. I mean, honestly, you pretty much sit him until he starts becoming more relevant. Moving on to our sleepers, wide receivers outside the top 20. Mine is pretty much, I think he might be outside the top 30 and maybe close to the top 40, but that's going to be Isaiah McKenzie. Coming back this week, full practice today, out of concussion protocol, playing at Kansas City. We already talked about, Josh Allen, how much he throws the ball. And you really want any part of this offense. But honestly, right before he got that concussion, he was getting more and more involved, and he was really involved in the red zone. And there was a lot of people talking about he is this year's Dawson Knox because of how much he's been targeted in the red zone. And, he's coming back. They're playing Kansas City. And I can go ahead and tell you, he's not getting the first cornerback on him. He's not getting the second cornerback on him. But he's going to probably get the third cornerback on him. And he's really talented. He's getting heavily targeted by Josh Allen. And he's going to be covered by the third cornerback because the first 2 are going to be on Diggs and Gabe Davis. And I like him a lot. This week, I'm actually playing him in my flex in 2 leagues. So I think he'd be a good pick. So who do you got as your sleeper wide receiver there, Josh?
Well, this guy was right outside the top 20, and you've already mentioned him, Jacoby Myers.
Yep.
He's been good the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
We've already talked a lot about him.
Yep.
Probably not that much to say about him.
Nope. He's a good start. Definitely. And moving out of that, we're going to move on to our tight end start. Honestly, man, I feel like I'm throwing darts at a dartboard and just hoping I hit something relevant. But mine is going to be David Njoku versus the Patriots this week. Patriots are actually like the 19th ranked pass defense against the tight end. And David Njoku has really put up solid numbers for the last 2 weeks.
I've been playing him in a league that I didn't have a tight end.
And I think he continues to do it because I think that both of these teams are going to be able to score on the defenses. But let's see the last 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, Pittsburgh 23 points. Last week, 6 catches, 6 targets, 88 yards. So 14 points last week. And I think you just got to take advantage of that matchup. There's some other decent matchups out there, but I think this one, and also you got to talk about Cleveland's wide receiver woes. Amari Cooper's been hit or miss. Donovan Peoples-Jones is getting in the mix, but for the most part, David Njoku has been one of their most solid, consistent wide receivers. And he's our pass catcher at tight end. So I like
he
David
might have
Njoku.
the most targets for wide receiver tight end.
He very well could. But I can look that up while you're going yours, and I can verify that. But David Njoku's mine. Who do you got at your start at tight end there?
I got Hayden Hurst. Higgins still banged up. He had 7 targets and had a pretty good game last week. So hey, I'm gonna roll with him again. I think I mentioned him last week.
Yep. And you were close to right there, Josh. Amari Cooper, 27 targets. David Njoku, 24. So
yeah, but for a tight end, that's pretty good.
Oh, No, I'm sorry, I lied. That was not targets. That is receptions.
Oh,
Now
really?
targets, he is far down from that. But that's also impressive his efficiency. He's
Yeah.
got 24 catches on 29 targets.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then
That is
he
pretty
is
good.
third on the team though behind Cooper and Jones. But like we just talked about in receptions, he's second and only 3 behind Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper has done hardly anything the last 2 weeks. I mean, last week he had an okay week, 7 catches, 76 and a touchdown. But the week before, 1 catch, 9 yards. I mean,
Well, then on the first week of the year, I remember he didn't do nothing
yeah,
because people was
3
dropping him.
3 catches, 17 yards on 6 targets. So but anyway, yeah, David Njoku's one of their better pass catchers on that team. But anyway, so but yeah, sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you talking about your tight end there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead
So
to
anyway,
what are we talking?
all right, we're
Sits.
starting about sits. We might have the same one on this one because I know
I'm pretty sure we probably
you
do.
can't stand this guy, but outside the top 5, and he's really not far, but I feel like he's a sit. And that's going to be Kyle Pitts at home versus San Francisco. I mean, what else is there to say? You got to, like we talked, he's one of those players that you might have to start him, but if you have any other option to pick up somebody and stream, you definitely want to do that. But if you can sit him, you sit him until he plays well, and he is not playing well right now. And
one of the biggest busts in fantasy football. He was drafted in around the 3rd round.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Atlanta's got to find a way to get him involved, but
yeah,
I don't know. It seems like they just don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, and
He's
honestly, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Well, I was just gonna say, honestly, it's kind of sad because there's really no there's no light at the end of the tunnel because they're not scheming with him. They're not trying to get him the ball.
Well, they don't want to win either.
Well, and that's true too. But I mean, at least get some reps and practice for your one of your star players that you spent a lot of draft capital on.
Well, I say that they actually play really hard for a team that don't need to win. It wants a good draft. Their defense plays hard.
Yeah.
I mean, for a bad team, they really don't give up.
That's right.
Last week against Tampa Bay, was that last week when they played Tampa Bay?
Yes, I believe so.
They sacked Tom Brady.
Yep.
And they called the roughing the passer.
Oh,
if they don't call that, they get the ball back with a chance to tie or win the ball game right there.
Yep.
So they haven't gave up. It's just I don't know. They're not scheming around him.
And also San Francisco's I think one of the top against tight ends. They might be the number 1 against tight ends.
Yeah,
and
they are.
That
They're
right
really high
there,
up there
with Kyle Pitts not playing well, you just got to sit him, and that's the same one you had too, right, Josh?
Yeah, it's the same one I had. But with San Francisco, they've got a lot of injuries on defense. This game, if Atlanta plays hard like they played last week or played the whole year, this game might be a little closer than people think it's going to be.
Yeah. Moving on to our sleepers, which are tight ends outside the top 10. Mine is Evan Ingram at Indianapolis. Honestly, he's just getting more involved in the pass game with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's getting more chemistry with him. Trevor Lawrence has already played well against Indianapolis' defense once this year. And Evan Ingram had a big game against them already, so we know he matches up well against their linebackers. So I like Evan Ingram this week kind of as a sleeper. He's fair out of the top 10. I want to say he's around 20. But I think he's somebody I would pick him up, and I'd probably play him over Kyle Pitts this week. Who do you got at your sleeper there, Josh?
Well, this was probably the easiest pick I had of anything. Taysom Hill.
Yep, I thought about
it. If the Saints want to win, it looks like you got to get him involved. So, I expect him to get some carries again. And until they stop him, you got to feed him.
And I'll be honest, the only league I could get him in, I picked him up, but I've got Gerald Everett. But I'm starting Taysom Hill over Gerald Everett this week, no doubt. Just because, I mean, I think Gerald Everett, I mean, he's probably going to get 6, 7, maybe 8. If he gets a touchdown, he'll have a really good week. But Taysom Hill, like we've talked about before, could win you your league. And you don't want to have him on your bench when they decide to get him more involved. I feel like Sean Payton never really had to get him involved because he was so creative with his play calling, and he always had Drew Brees kind of there, until the last year. And I feel like that's why he wasn't used as much, but I feel like with this offense now, they need all the help they can get. And he is one of the best playmakers they have on the team.
He looks like the best option they have right now, to be honest.
Very, very true. So I like that pick a lot. And I'm playing him. Like I said, I'd play him over a lot of tight ends right now, at least until we see them not use him as much or at all, or he gets hurt.
Well, what do we talk about? And if you don't have the top 3 or 4 tight ends, what do we talk about? It's getting a touchdown.
Yep.
And who else has a better chance of getting a touchdown?
Well, not just running for one, passing for one, or catching one. I mean, so that's exactly right. So, but moving on to we'll do our kickers, and we'll roll through these pretty quick. My start's going to be Ryan Suckup. It's been pretty solid all year. He's at Pittsburgh. We're expecting Tampa Bay to score the ball a fair amount. Whether he's kicking extra points or they're just moving in a field goal position and they just get stopped and they kick a field goal, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity nonetheless. So is there somebody you like particularly?
Yeah, I got Graham Gano, number 3 this year. I've got him actually in a league or 2.
Yep.
And he's been doing good. And along with the Giants.
That's right. Good pick. Moving on to our sits at kicker. I mean, you could roll the dice. Who knows who's going to have a bad week? But honestly, somebody that's really been underperforming compared to what I thought he was going to do after he opened the season, that's Cade York playing against New England at home. Honestly, I'm just picking this because it's Cleveland. It's at Cleveland, and it's long history of being really windy. And the forecast is calling for like 20-mile-an-hour gusts at least right now. So I just don't like it. And if you're playing in a league like I do in a couple of mine where you get penalized for missed field goals and missed extra points, then you definitely don't want to have a kicker that's kicking in high winds. So that's why I got Cade York there playing against New England. He's going to have some opportunity, but I just don't want to take the chance on him missing those in those high winds. Is there somebody in particular you really don't want to start your kicker?
Yeah, I got your man on here. Oh, Koo.
Well,
he had a bad week last week.
He had a terrible week.
And he's got San Francisco this week, so it might not get any better. So I'm gonna go with him this week.
And honestly,
even though we bragged on him the first of the year, but I think he's come back down to earth.
He has, but honestly, the only reason I thought about putting him on there, but I feel like they're in a dome, so he's got good weather. And I feel like they're going to get stopped a fair amount, even if they do move the ball some. And they're, as long as San Francisco's not lighting the world on fire and they're not behind like 20 or 30, I think they're going to give him chances to kick the ball. Does that mean that that's going to happen? The probability, probably not. But that's the only reason I didn't put him there, because I felt like he might have a little bit of a chance to have a decent game at least. And I just feel like Cade York with the bad weather, weather affects kickers so much.
Koo, he missed one last week, huh?
He did.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, he only had 1 point last week after I talked him up.
Yeah.
He must have listened to the podcast. Yeah. Moving on to our sleeper at kicker. This one pretty easy for me because he's been doing fairly well, and he's a big name that's kind of on a sleeping team, but that's Greg Zuerlein for the Jets playing at Green Bay. Zuerlein was a big name in kicking for a long time. Then kind of fell under the radar after he left the Rams, and then he was at the Cowboys last year, got hurt. They let him go, And now he's at the Jets. And if you haven't been paying attention, the Jets have been scoring the ball a fair amount. They're going at Green Bay, not the best weather site, but I feel like he's going to have the opportunity. And I looked at the forecast, it's saying sunny right now, not really saying anything else. So, I mean, unless the weather changes, I think he's got a good chance to kick some field goals in Green Bay. And their run defense is okay. So if they're running the ball some and they're getting stops on third down, then that's going to give him opportunities for field goals. So I like Greg Zuerlein at Green Bay this week. You got somebody that maybe a little bit deeper league guy that you think about
I
starting?
got a true sleeper because this guy has been injured and hasn't played.
Yep.
But he's been seen kicking field goals, and they think he's going to play this week.
Yep.
And that's Jake Elliott for Philadelphia.
Yep.
And they're playing Dallas, so
Yep.
I have a feeling they're going to be kicking more field goals than they have
Yep.
been in the last several games, and actually could be a lower scoring game. And if he gets a chance to get back out there, he could be a true sleeper.
Completely agree. Moving on to our defensive streaming. You know, we can call it start, sit, sleep defense, whatever, but essentially it's defenses we like to stream and defenses we don't want any part of. And my number one, and really it's kind of ironic, I've got my start and my sleeper are the same game. And I mean, honestly, I wish if it wasn't for Thursday night football being night, and we don't do Thursday night players or games on this podcast, that I literally would have probably picked Chicago and Washington out of that for the starts, because I think their defenses did pretty well tonight. But my start at defense is going to be the Rams versus Carolina. Normally, I don't like starting a defense against a new coach and new quarterback, but just given the poor offensive chemistry and disruption, not to mention the pass rush of the Rams, I feel like PJ Walker is just going to be overwhelmed. And I think the corners there are going to take advantage of that. I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive than usual. And I think you got a good chance of some turnovers and maybe a touchdown for the Rams going against Carolina. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into my sleeper for this because this is the same game. I got Carolina at the Rams because, honestly, Carolina's defense has been really good the last several weeks, believe it or not. And as bad as Matt Stafford has been at turning the ball over, I think they got a good shot at getting a turnover, maybe possibly with a touchdown. So they're a defense that they're probably available in almost all leagues. It looks like they're rostered about 12% of leagues, but I mean, just the last 3 weeks, they played New Orleans, 18 points, Arizona, 12 points, San Francisco, 13 points. That's the last 3 weeks right there. They've gotten in the last 3 weeks 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and 4 sacks, but they've had 2 touchdowns. So, and then they've also had 2 blocked punts or kicks in the last 3 weeks. So, to me, I mean, I think that's somebody against a team that's offense is kind of struggling. I think that's what you look for. And it says right here that the Rams offense has been giving up points, over 25 points the last 2 weeks to defenses. So I like the Panthers as my sleeper. So Josh, I'll let you go ahead and go to your start now after I kind of took over there for a second, but I just felt like since I was going to talk about that whole game, I'm going to start, but I'll probably start either one of their defenses, you know. But
well, believe it or not, my
Uh-oh.
start is the Rams.
There you go.
And what's crazy is I actually was able to pick them up in 2 leagues.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, their offense has been so poor. I feel like, well, they've had some injuries on defense, but I feel like their defense has been on the field so much because their offense is their time of possession on offense has been so low. I think
well, another thing about
gas
them
in their
is
defense.
they probably have the hardest schedule in the league coming off the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at their schedule, and it is horrible. This is probably the
easiest game they have all
left.
year.
So I think this is a get right for them on both sides of the field, offense and defense. So I think this might be their best game of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yep.
This week, and then I'll probably have to drop them.
Yeah. Oh,
because
yeah. No doubt.
Which I'd pretty much do that anyway.
I'll say
I
definitely
stream
stream defense, no doubt.
And then I got for my sleeper.
Yep.
I got the Chargers. They kind of fell off, even though early in the year everybody's big on them. So a lot of people had dropped them.
Getting healthy.
They're playing a Broncos offense that just seems like it's in turmoil, and I think the Chargers are getting a little healthier. So I think they have a pretty good game on both sides of the ball this week. So I'll take them as a sleeper for defense.
Yep. And then moving on to our sits, defenses we do not like. And I don't like Green Bay playing at the Jets. I mean, honestly, I'm sorry, Green Bay playing at home against the Jets. Honestly, just this offense the Jets have, I mean, they're putting up a lot of points. They've got multiple weapons, and I mean, Green Bay's defense has been a little underwhelming. They start off the year pretty well, but then this past week, they let me see, they really let me down. I started them in 2 leagues, and they were playing a really good matchup against the Giants. As far as offense goes, like Saquon's been well and the Giants have been winning, but as far as offense goes, they haven't been putting up a ton of points. But they gave up 27 points, only sacked Daniel Jones 1 time, which the dude's been getting sacked a lot all year, and they ended up getting a safety on him, and that's probably what saved their fantasy week. But they only had 5 points, and then now they're going to be going up against the Jets team that really isn't giving up a lot to defenses. Last week, which Miami's defense is nothing to shake a stick at by any means, but they had a -1. And then the week before that was Pittsburgh, who isn't much either. They had 5, but for the most part on the year, the Jets is the 14th worst team to go up against. But I feel like the Jets offense is starting to really get a chemistry going with Zach Wilson under center. And I don't want to be in the way of that if I can help it. So I'm against the Packers defense at home this week. Who do you got that you don't really want to play a defense?
I got Miami against Minnesota.
Yep.
I think Minnesota wins this game, and Justin Jefferson right now, he's just on another level, it seems like, in most games, and he could have a big game. And I think Minnesota's offense is just too good right now.
Completely agree. And like you said, Miami's defense has really been struggling. They started out fairly well, and ever since Tua went down, which I think it might have something to do with time of possession also, because their offense
I'm sure it does,
is not really controlling the clock like it was. And I think they've had some injuries too. I'm not 100% on like what specific personnel, but their defense was playing fairly well and just kind of took a nosedive when Tua went down, and I don't think it's going to change this week because they already said Tua's not coming back. Teddy Bridgewater has a chance to come back, but they said they're preparing like they're going to start the rookie Skylar Thompson at quarterback, which to me sounds like they're going to run the ball a fair amount or try to throw a bunch of screenplays to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
It might be that they're scared to play Bridgewater because of the concussion deal with him right now.
And it very well could be. And but either way, I think that's a good call. Miami's defense. I think they could become more relevant later on when Tua comes back, but at this point, they're definitely not somebody you want to start in your league. So, but that's pretty much. You have anything else you want to talk about there, Josh?
Yeah, one more thing I was going to say is, this week starts bye weeks.
Yep.
So y'all need to be planning ahead. You don't want to wait and that week and be like, oh crap, who am I going to start? You need to plan ahead for that and kind of look towards your bye week. Start looking at your waivers to see who's going to be there, but just kind of plan ahead on that kind of stuff. You don't want to just give up a week. That might be the week that keeps you out of the playoffs.
And also a little helpful trick that I've learned in the past, if you're doing really well and target people in your league that are kind of mediocre or at the bottom of the barrel, and they have these players that are on bye this week, target those players for trades, because not only do you get them and then you don't have to worry about them playing on a bye after that, but also you can kind of take advantage of somebody that's not playing as well, and try to, it's that's what you got to do to win. And that goes into factor that player doesn't have a bye, and if you can trade that player during their bye for a player you have that hasn't had their bye, then that keeps you from having that player go on bye, and you end up saving a week like that. So just a little helpful hint there. Try to trade for some of those players that are on bye that you don't like, with players that you're not going to be starting. And that'll keep you from having to sit starters during bye weeks that way. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Chasing the Trophy podcast for our Start Sit Sleepers week 6. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple, Castbox, whatever type of streaming app that you use. Please follow us, download our apps, because download our episodes, because that's how we get noticed, and they keep track of all that. And also like and subscribe. And we appreciate everybody out there listening. Good luck on your fantasy week, and give us any feedback that you can think of. And good luck, and y'all have a good weekend, and we will see y'all next week.